Today I have the unlikely task of following three stalwarts who I think deserve a standing ovation in this audience. At least a big round of applause. I want to begin my conversation with talking about this word which has plagued me. It has followed me everywhere I have gone in terms of my life and career and choices I have made. Access. As a 21-year-old newly minted lawyer, if you had asked me that I would be standing many years later in front of a room like this, talking on this topic, my answer would have been no chance. This is not how you see your life play out in front of you. My first job was as a corporate lawyer. 3 years of that, and I knew that I couldn't do that anymore. My second job was working on access to information. And the reason I put up the definition of the word access on screen here is because it is something that perhaps we use so much in this sector, but there are many, many forms it takes. In my second job, when I was working on access to information, it took the form of rights. The right to ask for information empowered a villager to ask for muster rolls, which then made possible for them to unlock the idea that they were denied benefits due to them. This is where law plays the role of access. But in the lives of people, access comes in the form of Sudhaji and Babaji and Dattatreji, because that unlocks something. But one thing I noticed in that job, which was about the idea how denial of identity or understanding identity got in the way of accessing something. I then worked on access to justice for women, and women experience access very, very differently from men. And I can see all the women in the room smiling and laughing. I want specifically to talk about the idea of violence, particularly. When a woman in a violent situation leaves home, starting life without any form of identity, I realized is what really happens, because you have left with nothing. And to rebuild life, you need a foundational something, a piece of something that enables you to enter, to seek permission, to build your life again. And this is where identity came into the piece again, in my life again. Then I had the opportunity to work on AADHAAR. And the dots kind of connected themselves. The story wrote itself, because in my head, without the idea of foundational identity, a foundational identity which is assigned to you by who you are, man, woman, other, child, without anything else, that you can carry and it can travel with you, that you can seek to, even if you don't have it on you, but you can get a new one. That fundamental little thing, that idea, what can it unlock? Apparently many things, including the ability for all of you today to use a QR code to make payments and forget cash. But that's the idea of a small, something that happens somewhere which has an impact somewhere else. So today I stand before you to talk about unconnected things. Access, childhood, caring adults, the importance of surround sound, and narratives. Seemingly unconnected things, but for this room and this audience, the dots will hopefully connect. And at the end of which I have an invitation. This image, ChatGPT has unlocked the ability for me to simply string a few words together and create a visual on access. Access comes in the form of law, access comes in the form of technology, access comes in the form of people, access comes in the form of narratives. For example, how many of you remember School Chale Hum as a campaign? Everybody remembers, right? What is the visual in your head when you remember it? The blue uniform, the girl in the pigtails, blue uniform, white shirt, blue uniform. That aspiration, that desire for that results in 99% of our children practically going to school, even though there are stories of many that don't, because we are so big and the volume is such. But nonetheless, the idea of School Chale Hum. So here, today, I want to talk about ideas that unlock access and for whom, and how it is experienced, but in the context of our youngest. I have 8 minutes to speak, much of which I probably have swallowed up right as of now. But in these 8 minutes that I would have been on here on stage, 380 babies would have been born in India. I urge you to close your eyes. Seriously, close your eyes. And imagine this child gurgling, crawling, walking, running, playing, falling, crying, laughing. And you can open your eyes now. Over the next 8 years, that baby is this. That's essentially the lifetime that we are talking about, and that is the time of childhood. And I invite you, really, to think about our work, whether you call it FLN, where there are outcomes to achieve, but I really, really invite you to think about it in terms of childhood. We use many complex words to express it, but can we talk about it in the context of the joy, the happiness, and all those visuals that are in your heads and the movies that are running in your heads when you close your eyes and imagine that child? The invitation is to unlock abundance. There is a lot that's wrong, but there's also a lot that's right. And the lot that's right comes in the form of caring adults. In the context of early years, it's actually very little about the child, and it's a lot about the caring adult around the child. The caring adult comes, of course, in the form of a Sudhaji and Dattatreji and Babarji, but also comes in the form of the mother as the first teacher, the father, mother again, of course. The reason I bring up this issue is because when we at EkStep started thinking about, for those of you who know EkStep, you think of us as technology people, but when we started thinking about the early years, we said, let's bring the narratives that we really aspire for to become the narratives and imagination of the early years for the country. Can we create a language that unlocks abundance? Can we create the language of permissions? Permissions come to you in many different ways. Laws give you rights. Permissions come to you in the form of technology. The fact that somebody decided to put a camera on your phone and decided that it could be flipped this way suddenly has given the whole world the permission to take their own pictures and put them out somewhere. But permissions also come to you in the form of cultural permissions, behaviors of others around you, cues that you take as parents particularly of other parents around you, ideas. So we at EkStep, along with at least 70 organizations who came together, started having this conversation as how do you unlock abundance? Because we've been approaching a problem with a scarcity mindset. Can we shift the mindset to an abundance mindset? And what does an abundance mindset sound like? What does it look like? And what does it feel like? And what actions will you take when you think from an abundance mindset? These are the questions we've been playing with. And in some ways, it looks like this. It looks like a mother who is being a responsive parent. These are images of a family that was one of our partners in our Bachpan Manao campaign called Dost Education. They just wanted to capture images of responsive parenting in Indian household in Uttarakhand. None of this was orchestrated, none of this was created. We just hung around with families for a few days and captured the imagery in what they did on a day-to-day basis. The shift in mindset of this mother, of an engaged mother, versus someone who is stressed about life, which most mothers are, every mother is, and every father is too. But seeing that this that she is doing is resulting in the growth of her child, knowing that it is resulting in the growth of the child, actually is a hugely empowering narrative for her. This is what responsive parenting looks like, a conversation. This is what it looks like. Words which are in policy documents need to come into the public domain in visual form so people can engage and embrace it. Visuals like the school transformations that he was showing. Visuals like the women who are coming out to fight for something. This is as critical as the words to explain and teach. And this is where I want to talk about the importance of surround sound. The idea of learning is not only within a school system, but it is particularly in this age group, is everywhere. Caring adults come in the form of librarians, in the form of mothers, fathers, grandparents, the three esteemed speakers before me, and many, many, many more. In Karnataka, the Librarians of Karnataka was a project where public libraries were converted into welcoming spaces for children, where the librarian, who was an administrator of books, was taught to do only one thing, to read a story. The transformation within the librarian is more interesting to me than the transformation of the library space. The transformation within means that she no longer thinks of her space as just her library, but also the Anganwadi, where she will go and read a book. Also the temple compound, where she will read a book. Also the school, where she will read a book. And in a country like India, grandmothers play and grandfathers play as much of a role as parents. It comes in the form of a special needs educator, taking various shapes and forms. Deepika Foundation in Dehradun works with families, whole families. Would you believe that there are groups, support groups for fathers of young children? While we talk about mothers' groups, have you considered the idea of fathers' groups? That they may need to think and talk. Have you considered the idea that if parents call a IVRS number, they can pick topics they want to listen to and give their own input? And this is happening in rural Bihar and rural UP in the form of the Bachpan Manao IVRS social media mobile Vani work. And fathers are calling in. It's not just mothers. And lastly, I leave you with this image. While these images look like normal images, these are images of engaged families in their local communities. Engaged families in their local communities celebrating childhood. With that, I want to invite you into a wider societal conversation to recast our narratives for our youngest and say, let's celebrate the first 8 years of our children as the time to celebrate childhood, because India knows how to do tyohars. Does the idea of celebration of the caring adult in whatever form and the idea of celebration of this period help us embrace this with more joy and come to it with an abundance mindset? With that question, I leave you and invite you to watch a short film, which is about just 90 seconds, and I hope I took my 8 minutes. Thank you.
मुल की हंसदी बोना से काठों मा होया कतगा रोते लोच मेरो गाँव मा होया माठो माठो आई ब्याखोने पाख्यों मा होया माझी बाटू हिरणी चटियागी डेरा मा मुल मुल के हंस दे हो पूना से काठियों मा हो कथगारों तेलुचा।
बच्चों को सीखने की आज़ादी दो, उन्हें बचपन मनाने दो।